All right, all right, all right. We are back. We are back, and I have my. See, everybody is here. All right, there's Rebecca. There's Assan, Dawaune, Jasmine, and that is everyone. I want to introduce everyone. Just give you a 10-second, and then we will get into some questions. Lamont Hayes, introduce yourself, good brother, and tell the people who you are real quick.
Yes, my name is Dawaune Lamont Hayes. I'm born and raised here in Omaha. I call myself a creator because I like making things. And I am the founder of Noise, North Omaha Information Support Everyone. I have a background in journalism and public relations. I launched a campaign for mayor this last season, and am really engaged in organic and regenerative culture, so things that have to do with outside.
Okay. Yeah. So. Well, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate you bringing your talent and your intellect into this conversation. I'm gonna go over to Miss Jasmine Harris. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jasmine Harris. I am the Director of Policy and Advocacy with a nonprofit called RISE. We work with people who are incarcerated and coming home from incarceration. I've been doing criminal justice reform work in the community, civic engagement work, and ran for mayor this last cycle as well.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on both you guys' run. It was really exciting to watch, and I just appreciate your willingness and your boldness and your courage to step out there and to lead this city. So thank you. And I want to go to Miss Rebbeca Atkins.
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name is Rebbeca Atkins. I am the chair for the Greater Omaha Young Professionals Council, and I'm a career advisor at UNO.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining. And last but not least, Mr. Assan Manneh. Did I say that right?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. This is Assan Manneh. I was born in the Gambia, West Africa. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska, currently working at Cobalt Credit Union as a VP of Retail Banking. I'm also a member of the Greater Omaha Chamber Young Professional Council with Rebbeca, and also a board member for the League for African Advancement here in Omaha. Thanks for having me. And I want to say Eid Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. Today's Eid. So.
All right. And you want to explain what that is real quick?
Yeah, Eid is, we fasted the last 30 days. We've been fasting during Ramadan. It was the time for devotion and just, one of the pillars of Islam that we normally do. And it lasted about 30 days. Today is the last day, and we are celebrating today. So.
All right. Well, I appreciate you all for joining and that explanation. So we've been talking about brain drain in this city. And first of all, for a show of hands, who is native Omaha on the panel? No one. Okay, there we go. All right, so we got three. So Assan, you are the import.
I'm the international guy here.
All right. Dawaune, you didn't even want to raise your hand. So I got a couple of questions to kind of get us kicked off, and hopefully it will lead us into some helpful dialogue. So first question, what are three things that you guys feel like, I'll just go around the horn. Rebecca, you work for the chamber, correct?
I'm on the chair for the Greater Omaha Chamber Young Professionals Council. So it's a volunteer role. It's not my place of work, but yes.
Okay. Well, let's start with you with this question. What are three things that you would that would impact a young professional's decision to live or to live in this city or to leave this city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've actually the Young Professionals Council has conducted surveys. There's been a few, I think since 2015, that have kind of asked this question as to why people are leaving or why they would stay, what would get them to come back. I think the top things that we always see are if people feel included and welcomed in their community and appreciated and celebrated. So that's a huge piece. There's also employment. We're seeing with especially this generation of young professionals who is just coming out of college, is that they are looking for places to live first. So they're looking for that hype, the vibe, of a city that they want to be in, and then finding a job next, which hasn't always been the case. So that's kind of interesting, I think. And then I would say, I don't know, the third one might be tough, but I think those are probably the top ones, as employment, job, and then inclusivity and how people feel in the city.
All right. So thank you for that. So Jasmine, would you like to add anything to that? Why do you stay in this city?
I say because I'm not technically a young professional anymore. When I joined the Urban League of Nebraska Young Professionals, I was telling them, I got a few more years before I'm technically not considered a young professional. But going to what was said about the surveys, in 2017 is when that data came out on why African American young professionals leave this state and leave this city, and how they're 5 to 6 times less likely to recommend it. And again, it's that inclusivity piece. We have to, again, look at our race relations in this city, in this state. And that's going to be a big thing for a lot of people, especially after this past year, and seeing how all that played out. And it's not just African Americans anymore who are saying, hey, we need to get a grip on how our race relations are. I think it's also, as people are starting to age out of that, maybe the 20 to 29 year range, because they're still young professionals, they're starting to think about family. They're starting to think about schools for their children, housing, affordable housing, because that's another thing that we hear too. If I'm going to be looking at buying a home, and right now with the market here, what does that look like for me as a young professional? Getting access to a starter home and things like that. And then we also have to look at the infrastructure of the city and the sustainability, because we have a lot of people who are wanting more from their city when it comes to sustainability, addressing the, climate change and things like that, and the transportation and mobility around the city. So we have to begin to look at design and infrastructure as well. And to the point of people are starting to look at cities and what that vibe, that infrastructure plays into that as well. So I think it's a lot that goes into it. And again, I say, because I have a family, I have roots, born and raised, I knew that I had to leave in high school if I was going to succeed. And I did leave. And so I'm what they call a boomerang. I came back. And because it's like you, Gerald, because I wanted to help my city and the area that I come from, North Omaha, and really see change that progresses everybody and gives everybody a chance to thrive here.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that. Now, Mr. Assan, my man from Gambia, you've been in this city for a while, man. What keeps you here? What keeps you from, leaving to go and taking your talent somewhere else? And what do you think would keep others here?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the Gambia to Nebraska for college, I've always wanted to leave, but I kind of think about it as a way of like, if all of us leave, who's going to be here to kind of like be an advocate for the other people that are coming in, especially for international students? It has crossed my mind many times where I feel like, do I really feel welcome in a city where I feel like, it's very conservative and doesn't really line up with my ideas? But having been part of the Young Professional Council and trying to be an advocate for the city, it became important for me to decide that I think I want to stay here, be a mentor for other young professionals, especially like immigrants that are coming into the city. We don't have that many people. When I got here a couple of years ago, it's been almost 15 years. I didn't really have a mentor to look up to when it comes to, somebody from another country coming to Nebraska. So I kind of look at it that way and said that, I got to stay here, be an advocate, be a mentor for other people that are coming in, see how we can welcome them and see how best they can feel welcome in the city as well. So that's, one of the reasons why I'm here. I'm also, I met my wife here. that can change your life. You know, she's from Nebraska, so at some point I was like, I was gonna leave, but you know how that goes. So.
Nebraska's home now. Okay.
Nebraska's home now.
And Dawaune, is there anything you want to add?
Sí, la cultura, like we need it. With like Omaha has culture, and we have so many different ones here. But the challenge becomes, where do we celebrate together? It's very segregated, as you know, geographically, economically, socially, and physically. Like Jasmine's mention of transportation is very important. You know, people are attracted to cities, especially young people are attracted to cities where they don't have to have a car. A car is another thing you have to own. It's another thing to maintain. We know that the wheel and gas tax here is really high. Plates are expensive. Like you have to take on such a large fiscal burden in order just to get from one place to another, you're less likely to go to that place in the first place. So that's huge. And honestly, like that sense of belonging. I'm born and raised here in Omaha, and I love Omaha. I've had incredible opportunities here, but I see why people leave. and I myself am preparing to take a step away, because it will wear you out, and you will try to like pour your all. You're like, come on, give me progress, give me movement, give me momentum. Like, we have everything we need here to do everything we're talking about. It's just when the dominant culture is old and wants to maintain certain status quos for power and convenience, then over like sustainability and real meaningful development, rather than just like putting up a building to make profit, you're not going to get a sustainable culture. You're not going to get people attracted to this place and want to stay here, because you don't care about us. You care about getting money from us. You care about us as taxpayers, but not as contributors of community and as cultural creators. And so, you know, starting Noise was a huge part of that for me, where like, how can I create something that can serve as a platform for the kind of media making, storytelling that we need, so that people can begin to see themselves here. And see themselves reflected in the dominant narratives, because for a long time we just weren't present, or if we were, it was not our story, it's someone else telling it for us.
Wow. All of your responses have been spot on, and I can relate to each and every one of your comments. And I feel like we could dive into each and every one of the comments and really spend about an hour on each one of them. But I think that you guys' comments is an excellent segue into whose responsibility is it to reduce brain drain? Is it the government? Is it people's? Is it grassroots? Is it another organization? Whose is it? So whoever feels like they want to take the first step into answering that question, go ahead. But whose responsibility is it to kind of shift the brain drain or stop the brain drain?
I think it's every sector you just said. It's the government, it's the business, it's the nonprofits, it's people in general in the community. It's all of us. It's going to take all of us to reduce it, because everything that we're talking about, one entity can't do it on their own. When we're talking about young professionals wanting housing, we're going to need more than the government to address the housing shortage, the affordability of the housing. That's going to take a lot of people. And I think once we all realize what that vision is for Omaha, what we need to do is come together and create a unified vision of what Omaha is going to be. I remember sitting on a panel a few years back, and a woman was talking about her son and had a conversation with him, and he was deciding what college he wanted to go to. And he said, "I'm leaving, Mom, because Omaha doesn't know what it wants to be. Doesn't know if it wants to be a big city or a small town. So we don't have a unified vision on what Omaha is trying to be. And until we get that, we're never going to be on the same page to address it."
Wow. Thank you. Anybody else want to add something?
Yes, it's all of us. You know, I myself am, you know, I'm leaving for the summer, and I'm going to go study architecture and design, very specifically to talk about housing, because if you notice, Omaha's design architecture is not very, it doesn't evoke beautiful place. It's like, oh, it's a nice building, I guess, but it doesn't say like that's where creativity lives. That's where ambition grows. That's where communities thrive. It's just steel, concrete and steel, and that's not sustainable. One, we know that the cost of lumber is skyrocketing, so most people can't afford to even build a house right now. And we're going to have to really invest in new types of materials, industry design, and approaches to habitat making so that we can create them. It's not going to come out of the same old way because obviously we can't afford it, and it's not going to work that way. So, it's rooted in like all of us, being here as we can, and then taking time to go learn some things to bring back. Because not everything, we might have the tools and resources here, but we may not always have the knowledge. And that's what I've recognized. It's like, if you don't know that there can be better or different, or that there is a beautiful vision and you haven't seen it and encountered it, then you're not going to ask for it here. You're not going to demand it. The thing about bigger cities is that they have folks from all over the world who have had experiences with different kinds of communities to say, well, this is the kind of community I want here. And then they have the tools, knowledge, and resources to make it happen here. Most of that doesn't happen because we either leave and don't come back, or we just are never introduced to it ever, and have never left. This is something that is also to recognize. There are people who have been in the city limits and have never left the city limits. Therefore, their vision for what Omaha could be does not grow.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think it's going to be a collective effort, from the government to organizations. When you look at boardrooms, sometimes you don't see any people of color in there. It has to be all those things collectively, inclusivity. Senators or state legislators passing like bills. Sometimes you feel like, okay, you're passing, let's say, gun laws, but medical marijuana and things like that are not getting passed. So who are you really trying to impact? So all of these things is something that the community, the people, the government, it has to be a collective effort to make sure that we people feel like everybody is welcome and not just few people in the society. So if you do things like that, maybe some people might say, but no inclusivity, we're not going to get resolved.
Awesome. Awesome. Rebecca, did you want to add anything to that?
I'll just agree with what everyone else has said. I think it should be everyone's, top priority, because all those sectors do influence each other: government, the economy, right? Yeah, there's a lot of intersectionality there. We had a Young Professionals Council meeting last night, and we discussed this same topic because there's been so many different articles coming out about brain drain from the city and kind of what we can do about it. Sometimes I think as young people, we forget our own power too. And so I always like to empower young folks to speak up in your place of work. Like Assan was saying, our politicians or maybe our leaders, maybe they're, kind of talking the talk, not walking the walk. And so really just pushing forward, holding their feet to the fire, making sure they're following through on these things to make the city, better, to help improve. Like, do you really care about this issue? Or, is it just kind of lip service? So I like to always just encourage young folks to speak up and recognize your power, because we do have a lot of power and we can truly make a difference.
Awesome. And I appreciate all those comments, Dawaune. You really said something that kind of made my ears perk up, and I want to kind of dive into that a little bit and have everyone comment on it. You talked about you're leaving for the summer to go away, and I'm guessing the pandemic is still here, so we still need to wear our mask and everything like that. But traveling is opening up a little bit. And for those, and people have been cooped up in their homes for a while, and they just want to get out. So pre-pandemic, what are some things that, from traveling outside of Omaha, how has that affected your perspective of Omaha and getting better?
So as soon as, when I was applying for schools after graduating from Central, I was like, get me out. Financial aid had a different plan for me, and Creighton worked out, and I'm glad I was able to stay here, because as a person who was of age, I was then able to participate. because Omaha's culture is bar culture. Like we have lots of bars and restaurants, and everything's oriented around like drinking. And so if you wanted to have a social life, really as a young person here, you had to wait till you're of age, honestly. But when I got to go to other cities, I realized that there was just stuff to do, especially for young people between the ages of 14 and 20, that were all ages, that were open, that allowed them to be present and to participate and be contributors. Right now, if you are in that age range, you are at school, you might be at a work thing, or you're at home. There is no third place for you. There's no third place for you to just thrive, to be with your friends, to be seen, to share your opinion or your perspective. It is literally like, wait till you're a voter and you can pay taxes. And that's where, and so you have a lot of young people growing up here feeling like they don't have a place to go. And as soon as they have a chance to go, they do. But what I found in other cities is like they respect their young people, they create spaces for them, they listen to them and support them. And as far as like design, what it looks like, what it feels like, what you can go do, what you can encounter, what it smells like, what the music is like going to places like Santa Fe or New York or even Nashville, there is music, there is sound, there is a life, there's a vitality that is present to this place that you're like, wow, people do stuff here. You come to Omaha on a Tuesday night, you're not about to find nothing. You might find a handful of places, but there doesn't feel like, where's the culture? And you'll find it in pockets, but then it's not cohesive and it's not inclusive or inviting. And so that's what draws me, and that's what's drawing me to some other places to be like, how can we physically create the environments to host the culture? Because that's what we need, and many of our places don't really foster or facilitate that like it needs to be.
I agree wholeheartedly. Rebecca, any sentiments, any follow-up sentiments you want to add on how traveling outside of Omaha has affected your perspective of what you expect out of the city?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that younger, kind of that gap, and you're absolutely right. It's true. If you're not 21, it's kind of like, what do you do? And I think COVID kind of exposed some of that. My husband and I took a trip to Denver, and we were thinking about, where could we go with COVID safe or COVID friendly things to do. Denver has a lot of beautiful art in the city. And so for like half of the days, we just walked around and looked at the art and, had coffee, and we didn't have to go into a bar or a restaurant, which we normally may have done on vacation. So yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective is, how can the city kind of invent itself and, like you said, host the culture, really invite the culture in. So that's a really good point.
Let's swing it over to Assan, and we'll get Jasmine the anchor leg to finish up this question. So Assan, how does traveling abroad or just within the United States affect your perspective of your expectation of Omaha?
Yeah, I mean, for me, coming from the outside in, I have noticed, I travel a lot. Sometimes going back home and coming back, connecting in Europe and, all those big cities. In a way, when you look at it, one of the things that sometimes when I go outside and come back to Omaha, you look at our roads, they're a mess, These are things like you hit potholes. Sometimes you have to stop and say that my tire blew, so these are things I feel like even in Kansas City or Denver, when you look at the road system, the public transportation, all those are things that are way advanced than Omaha, Nebraska. So hopefully those will be things that will change. But also I'm a sports guy. I like soccer, Manneh all the way. So when you look at it like professional sports, those are things that are lacking in the city as well. I know Union Omaha is here now. That has also a lot of international people. They love like soccer. When it comes to professional sports, we don't have basketball and all those things. So these are things that you find in other cities. And when you come back, you're like, oh, wow, what is going on here? Social justice initiatives. We don't have any of those. Even if we do, it's not comparable to other big cities. So, we still have a lot of work to do as a city and as a community to be able to catch up to other places and make it where everybody will want to live here and not want to leave out. So,
all right, and we're gonna take a break after Jasmine. Jasmine, give us real quick something. How does traveling affect your perspective?
When I was 17, I left, and that really put the impact on me from that young of an age. I went to school in New Mexico, so just getting to see how culture was brought in and how people interacted really blew my mind because that wasn't here in Omaha. So for me, that has always been the basis of how we are working together as a community and how that can really impact the shaping of our city. And, to what Dawaune was saying, young people are included in these cities. Their voices are heard. They're a part of designing what the future of that city looks like. And then when we hear, well, what can we do here in Omaha, like in other cities?
Mm.
And that's where we fall short because we hear all of the things that go on in other places that would draw people here, that would keep people here, but it falls flat because no one wants to cope. No one wants to be Nebraska, the place for everybody. You know what I'm saying? I think we have to start there with those slogans too. So.
Thank you so much, and I think that you've hit the nail on the head a couple of times with some of those some of your comments. But right now, we're gonna take a brief pause for the cause. Go get some water. Go get a glass of water or something, and we'll come back with. I want to hear your solutions on what we can do to make this better. So we'll take a pause right quick and see you back in a couple of minutes.